us in prayer.
Most gracious and heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day you've given us, Lord. We ask you to be with this court as we go through today's business, Lord. Lead, guide, and direct us in all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead and call Marshall County Fiscal Court to order March 5th, 2019. First up under guests, Judge Jameson. Good morning, sir. We're going to discuss the ankle monitor program.
First of all, I'd like to thank Judge Neal and his staff and everyone else that's been involved in discussing this and getting today to where it was set up to occur. This isn't one of the topics that you'll just, oh, wow, that's the neatest thing I've ever heard about. But it's one of the necessary operational things that goes on in the judicial system. And essentially what's occurred is sort of stumbled across a realization, thank you, that our current setup doesn't comply with the statutes, is essentially what we found out. And it began as a search for a less expensive way to offer GPS ankle monitors, et cetera, within the court system, which are commonly used in court systems throughout the state. Examples of places where you might use them: someone accused of domestic violence might have an ankle monitor placed on them so that authorities can keep track of them, make sure that they're staying away from the alleged victim, those sorts of things. There are many other situations they might be used for sentencing. If someone's on home incarceration, you want to make sure they actually stay home, et cetera. You can place those monitors on them. And there are other devices that are used as well. Like if someone is accused of DUI, there are now machines that can read either through the skin or through the breath whether or not someone is consuming alcohol, and then report that via satellite. And so we have all sorts of neat technologies that are now available that weren't available in the past, on top of the typical GPS monitor, if you will. And how this got started was I asked an intern, I said, you know, when we put people on ankle monitors, I said, most of these guys that come through the system are indigent. You know, that's a classification under the statutes. And once you do that, they essentially are in a category where they are entitled to public defender services, things of that nature. They generally can't afford a very expensive ankle monitor. So a lot of the monitors will run somewhere in the range of $20 a day. Most companies, the current setup will require around a $400 deposit up front, plus around $110 a week in order to use that monitor. As you can imagine, that becomes very expensive, especially in circuit court, where a case might run 6, 9, 12 months. If that person is on bond on an ankle monitor that entire time, it can become very inhibitive just for them to pay their bills, child support, or whatever it might be. So we just started looking at, are there ways to reduce this cost? And an intern that was working in my office at the time found a company that was not only a manufacturer, but also would work directly with, and does work with large cities such as the city of Chicago, et cetera, to supply these services. And they were willing to look at doing something. So it's sort of born out of trying to solve a problem, and then arose this issue of, well, what do we need to do to make this happen, to make things better? And I reached out to AOC, the Administrative Office of the Courts, and their General Counsel, and asked some questions, and to kind of get a firm response from their perspective. And that's when we discovered that there are statutes, and I'm going to hand those out as far as the statutes we're going to be dealing with today. I hope I made enough copies for everybody, if you don't mind. If I didn't make enough copies, hopefully you're friendly enough with the person next to you, you can share with them.
What's the statute? We can,
Well, there's a few of them. 67-372 is really the one that creates the process through which a county government can come up with a GPS monitoring program to be used in the court systems. And it seems pretty clear from the reading of the statutes that this is the only way it can be done. So allowing someone to just contract with a private company directly is not permitted. It has to be through this structure, basically. Okay. And I was going to highlight a few specific points and then kind of go from there and open it up for questions. And as I know that some of you are already somewhat informed on the topic, so I didn't want to unnecessarily spend time on things that maybe folks already know, but wanted to be sure and answer all your questions today. So starting with 67-372, subsection 1, a county or a combination of counties may operate a global positioning monitoring system program subject to the following conditions. So where it says combination of counties, right in this statute later in the wording, it provides for any number of counties that would like to join together in doing this, which of course can make the bidding process more competitive, all those sorts of things. And our judicial system operates as a circuit. We are the 42nd Judicial Circuit, which comprises not just Marshall County, but also Callaway County. And I've spoken with representatives from the Callaway County Fiscal Court, and they're all on board as far as to the extent this makes sense. They were all on board with working with this Fiscal Court to make this to move this forward in a way that makes sense for everyone. So I do want to point out this statute specifically provides for counties working together. You can do it through interlocal agreement, but you don't have to. You essentially can just sign the contract. So it's a very simple process once the contract is worked out. That would be where the work would come in. Subsection 2, each county shall identify a law enforcement agency or agencies with jurisdiction in the county to assist a petitioner, victim, or witness when a person ordered to wear a monitoring device violates the provisions of the court's order and is in need of assistance. That's something that doesn't exist right now at all. That's one of the things that we're missing, and thank you for whoever was quick enough to pull that up on the PowerPoint there. That's something that doesn't exist right now in any way, shape, form, or fashion. There is no agency that is responsible for doing this. So that's a problem. That's one of the things we're missing. Subsection 3, a county or counties electing to contract with an entity providing a global positioning monitoring system and devices shall meet not less than all of the requirements of this section and KRS 403761. 403761 has to do with domestic violence. Those are minimal requirements, basically. We're just going to want to make sure that the contract has that necessary language in it. They have to do with protection of the victim, notice to the victim, things of that nature. So, and there are other statutes that are referenced, and so it's going to take, probably about a dozen or so statutes, piecing them all together, making sure all that language is in the contract. But that's not hard. That's just sitting down and doing it and negotiating those terms with whoever the provider might be. Now I'm going to skip down to subsection 6. The monitoring entity shall agree to a price for monitoring during the duration of the contract, which shall not be increased but may be reduced during the duration of the contract. The contract shall provide that reduced payments shall be accepted by the vendor as full payment for all purposes from persons determined to be indigent by a court or other authority ordering the use of the monitoring. Well, this is where we get into something that will have to be dealt with, and I have some ideas for potentially how to deal with this, but ultimately it'll be, if this moves forward, the fiscal courts, however the fiscal court would like to do this, that's what will happen. But essentially, the statutes and Supreme Court rules provide that someone who's indigent has to be able to pay something less than someone who's not. It doesn't say how much, Now, there is a scale that's under the Supreme Court rules. It's sort of a suggested guideline. You do not have to follow that. It's in the judge's discretion. Something that I think would be more manageable, knowing that we're going to have 3 or 4 judges using this who all have different, different situations where they use this, different approaches to using this, would be basically have one fee for indigent, another fee for those that aren't. Make it simple. Instead of a scale of anywhere from $7 up to $40 or what have you, and everybody's different. That would just be very, very hard to track the enforcement of the payment. So my thought was one price for the indigent, another price for those that aren't, basically. And that may not be the way to go, but I thought that would be the simplest. As far as who do you contract with, who's the contracting entity? Well, the statutes are a little unclear, in my opinion. They seem to favor, if not require, actually, that the monitoring be done by a government agency directly, 24/7. And I agree with that. I think that is the only way that you can get that immediate response that you're looking for. That if someone violates that order, you don't want it to be a day or two before you receive notice of that. You want it to be seconds. And having spoke with our E91 director, I don't know, where did she disappear? There she is. Ms. Ladonis, she and I've already spoken about this. She believes this would be very workable. If I may say, seemed sort of excited, honestly, about doing this. Maybe as much as I was. I don't know. But it'll kind of firm up some gaps that we have in our reporting of violations as well, which is one of my big concerns. Is if you're contracting with a third party and that third party is not government, what happens when that goes off at 3 in the morning? And that person that was supposed to be covering it's asleep, or there's some sort of crack that falls through. As to where if it's run directly through E911, you just don't have that problem. It can easily be done either through iPhone, iPad, or directly into their existing computer systems, and it's just an immediate report. And so you can deal with violations. For example, someone has an ankle monitor on, they're ordered to stay away from someone. The monitor automatically sees that this person's within 2,500 feet of that other person. It sends a signal to the satellite, sends it to E911. E911 looks at it, makes a discretionary call on, okay, what do I do here? Do I want to immediately call law enforcement? Or there are ankle monitors that if you choose to go this way, they can actually talk with the person that has the monitor on. So they hit a button and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, you're within 2,500 feet of your victim. What are you doing there? And then based on that feedback, then take action if they so choose. Or you can just set up a policy that as soon as there's a report of any kind, you just send law enforcement immediately to the area. And these things, of course, track within about 6 feet of where the person is. And they have monitors that are available that will also flash. So E911, for example, if the person, say, doesn't respond, when you hit the button, hey, I need to talk to you, where are you at, or we're going to send law enforcement, they can hit another button and this very, very bright LED light starts flashing. So that when law enforcement gets close, it'll be very hard for that person to cover up where they're at. That's some of the details there. As far as who to contract with, it requires putting it out for public bid, and that is in the statute as well. Let's switch statutes here. Let's see, 67-374 is where we're at, KRS 67-374, subsection 3. So that's going to be page 2 of the handout right in the middle. A county or combination of counties electing to participate in a GPS system shall, through a public bid process, select an entity or entities to provide the best available technology with regard to GPS monitoring that meet the requirements of this section and the other statutes. And also has to include the acceptance of reduced fees for petitioners and indigent persons ordered to wear a monitoring device. So this is where it gets tough. I know our existing situation is there's a private company out there that just contracts directly with defendants, which after reviewing all of this, probably not permitted. It has to be this approved statutory framework, or it's not permitted. Is my understanding from reading this. It's very clear that this is the only way that's supposed to be happening. So I know that under that current situation, there aren't fees reduced for those that are indigent. It's all one fee for everybody. So that would also, the current situation, be in violation of the statutory requirements. So how do you come up with a contract where a judge gets to decide whether or not somebody has to pay a fee and how much is paid, and then someone on the other side can count on still, covering their cost and hopefully making some money. So what I had proposed to a couple of folks was we've recently created a community corrections board, which is a statutory structure. There are some of the elected officials in the room that work with the judicial system are familiar with this. And basically, that came up when the legislature started deciding that communities needed ways to address things like addiction, post-incarceration ways to deal with problems on a local basis, basically. And one of the things that our community correction board specifically could do is be the contracting entity sort of between the manufacturer or provider and the defendant themselves. And that would be a way to do the reduced fees for the indigent and have the higher fee for the non-indigent individuals. I don't know how else to work that and keep the lower sort of numbers that we're hoping to get. So what sort of numbers are we talking about? Well, through this provider actually my intern located, they also manufacture these, and so the cost is extremely low compared to any other provider that we found. And so you're talking generally around $6 a day instead of the $20 a day. So the number of people that would qualify to participate in GPS services that are now being housed at the jail would increase substantially. There would be a lot of people that could get out of jail right now if they could just pay that ankle monitor. They can't pay it. And so if you get that down around to that $6 or $7 range, and the $7 is actually adding a $1 administrative fee for the county, which is permitted, then a lot more people could make that happen. Talking with the jail, there was a lot of excitement there that there's potential to reduce their budget, because looking at around $41 a day was the estimate that Callaway County gave me to house an inmate. Their thought was, well, hey, we'll pay $7 as opposed to $41 any day. So there was even a thought, and the statutes do allow for the county to pay for someone's monitor or some part of it if the person would otherwise have been incarcerated, and it would have cost more, for them to be incarcerated, is the language in the statute. So, in other words, the jail could just say, all right, we'll take a certain amount of our budget and agree to put that towards covering for people that don't pay, can't pay, that sort of thing, however it's set up. And it's my understanding, although Mr. Ford's not in the room, that from meeting with him, that he had very much an interest in that, as does the jailer in Callaway County, Ken Claude. So far, everyone that's been consulted, that's a necessary part of making this happen, is all thumbs up. It probably will save money. I would guess a lot of money, especially if the judges make a commitment to using this on a regular basis in the appropriate circumstances. I mean, you can't use this with everybody, but there are lots of folks that this is appropriate for, because these things are very reliable, and we have very few people tinker with them or damage them in any way. If they do, what they'll do is they'll cut the bracelet off, which as soon as that's done, the monitor alerts in the scenario that we've set up, they would alert E911 right away, and so law enforcement could be there in minutes. And those bands are very inexpensive to replace, so that's generally not a problem. People don't usually damage the machine itself because they have no need to. They just want to get it off their legs so that they can run. But that's, in my entire career, I've probably I've heard of half a dozen instances of that occurring. So it's not something that occurs very often because they know it's a serious situation. In certain situations, it can even be a D felony to cut that monitor off if it involves domestic violence. So I don't know if I've probably created more questions than I've answered by going through this, but I figured after getting to about there, I'd open the floor up just for questions, and hopefully that'll fill in any blanks that are out there. I know you'll have questions.
I just want to reiterate and make sure that folks understand that this is not for state inmates that are housed.
No,
I
no.
just want to throw that out there because
Not at
I know
all.
a lot of people watch our fiscal court meetings, and just to reiterate that this is not for state inmates. We're not going to put them on ankle monitors and send them outside. So.
Yeah, I should have made that clear up front. This is for folks generally that are pretrial. So they've been accused of a crime but are presumed innocent under the law, of course, and so they're usually on bond. So they have some sort of bond set. And, almost all the cases that we deal with anymore, I think just about everyone in this room is familiar. 96% of the cases that we deal with in our circuit are drug related. So what we're talking about is generally somebody who has an addiction problem. More of a threat to themselves typically than anybody else, but we may want to put that ankle monitor on them just to make sure they're where they're supposed to be. They're not going places where they shouldn't be. If we've got them set up with treatment, we want to make sure they're going to treatment, and it provides an extra layer of comfort and public safety as opposed to the current situation, which is let them out without the ankle monitor on in many of these situations. And so it actually provides more public safety in the right situations. So,
Right.
And yeah, it would be for pretrial. We would have no jurisdiction to put someone who's been sentenced on an ankle monitor or anything of that sort. This is all before they're convicted.
Okay.
I think one important point you made the other day also was that it allows them hopefully to keep their job and be able to pay that as well. So in a situation where
Sure. Well, and Mr. Darnold, his office prosecutes the child support cases, and there may be situations where, especially if a person has an addiction problem, so they may have a drug case open at the same time that they have, and when I say drug case, I mean a possession where they were using drugs, in possession of drugs, not trafficking, but and they have a child support going along with that, and that's very, very common because they get off on using drugs, and they don't pay their child support because they're spending on drugs. So if we get them out there on the ankle monitor, we know where they're at. We can go and get them if we have to. We can make sure they're doing the treatment that they need to be doing. If they have a job, we can make sure they're going to that job, all of those things. And it allows them to maintain that job where they can get out and hopefully begin to pay that child support. Or it may be court costs that they owe or restitution. In circuit court, we often deal with tens of thousands of dollars worth of restitution. And sometimes that can be very important. So if I've got somebody that just refuses to pay their restitution, it's sort of a catch-22. Do you lock them up for a year? Well, that's another year that victim's not getting their restitution. So, having these monitors available may allow me to, a lot of times what I'll do is say, all right, I want you to go to the unemployment office. I want you to go to the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. This, and this. Come in here and show me all this proof that you've tried to get a job. And if they actually do that, they usually get a job, which is, of course, the intended purpose. And then they can come back and report to me, well, I've got a job. And then I set them up on payments for their restitution. We put them out on review. And then eventually let them off that monitor once they've proven, that they're going to come around and hold a job down and pay their restitution. So this is not a leniency or in any way or anything that's going to let people out that wouldn't otherwise, that would somehow otherwise be a danger and be out. These are folks that typically are let out on surety bonds or on their own recognizance where they're just out there and we don't have anything to sort of trace them currently that they can afford, and that provides that immediate response that we really need. This would solve that. So this is really not providing some new leniency or anything. It is providing some security where we needed it to sort of snug up some of the holes.
And I know there's been meetings, and the information that's been shared is definitely positive. It's got a lot of positive aspects to it. And also the KRS, pretty much what we're doing right now is not within standing with the KRS. So
not in any
shoring
way
that up
fashion,
is something too that we need to look at. But I agree, having 911, having direct access, that way if it is an emergency situation, they can communicate with law enforcement. Definitely a better accountability system.
Absolutely. I mean, it would go from where we're currently at, which the folks that do the majority of it here now, great people. They work hard at it. Small company though, and just a couple of folks. So sometimes it results in delayed reporting, and it's set up right now to mostly go through our pretrial services. Well, if it's a weekend, it may take a day or two before the judge, myself, or one of the other judges gets word that somebody has violated, their conditions, and that can be a situation. It really can. So, in order to use these ankle monitors, we really need that immediate report.
And that gives law enforcement the ability, say, over the weekend or after hours to actually take action.
Right, and they're already there anyway.
Yeah.
So instead of having, someone, even if someone is sitting right there waiting for that call diligently, they've still got to call 911 to make something happen. So that's still a delay in the process instead of going right to the source. Even if it's only a couple of minutes delay, it's a delay. And in a couple of minutes, that can make a difference.
So there wouldn't have to be a warrant or anything. The law enforcement could respond immediately?
Right, because basically, how it would play out is, they can respond to a scene for any reason. Now, where they go from there would be in the discretion of law enforcement. If they think they've dealt with the situation, what would most likely happen is E911 or whoever's overseeing would make a report to the judge. Here's what happened. Here's how it was dealt with. So they may very well show on the scene and resolve the situation. Or maybe it was a technical issue. Maybe the device, that can happen if the person has to charge it ever so often, and if it's running low on batteries, you might get a bad read or something like that. Those kind of things can happen. So it would be in the discretion of law enforcement how to deal with the situation, but they certainly could deal with whatever is immediately the problem. Going from there, then a judge is going to have to be notified to issue a warrant or what have you in order to come in and hold them responsible for a violation. And generally that's going to be done more so where there's something significant, like attempting to come in contact with a domestic violence victim. That's going to be serious, right? If it's I'm sure Sheriff McGuire can tell you, this happens sometimes. It was like, well, we thought it was this going into it, but once we got there, it turns out actually, the guy didn't realize that this person was at Walmart and he just happened to go to Walmart to buy some groceries. That can happen. And the judge has probably responded to a few of those things as well. So they would have the discretion of how to deal with that, but then if there's something that does need to be dealt with, the judge could issue a warrant. And the judge should be able to be reached generally 24/7. District judges are contacted at all hours of the night about warrants, et cetera. Thankfully, I don't have to do much of that. That's not part of my role, but I would on bond violations like this where there was urgency. Right now, the way it's set up, that never happens, and it probably should be happening some. I should be getting those 2 o'clock in the morning stop-ins. Judge, this is what happens. We need to issue a warrant, so now it's taking a day or 2 or 3 a lot of times to get that processed, and almost sort of does away with the reason for the ankle monitor in certain situations. So it's a safety concern. And quite honestly, I mean, I think that's why they addressed all that in these statutes, is that it needs to be directly monitored by a government agency 24/7 rather than having that, ladder of communication there. You can just go directly to the source and law enforcement can immediately respond. So. Other questions? Callaway is, again, as I mentioned, very interested, as far as I know, in doing this together, since really it's all kind of, when you're dealing with 2 of the judges anyway, myself and Mattingly serve Marshall and Callaway, and the sheriff's office in Callaway is willing to oversee the calls, I guess receive the calls such as 911 would here. So if it's a Callaway issue, they would deal with it. If it's Marshall, obviously 911 here would be the proposed resolution of that. But as far as moving forward from here, I'm present on the 19th to the Callaway Fiscal Court, similar to what we're doing here today, and then just have to get together and work out the details of what a public bid might look like, and then go from there and open it up for anybody that wants to do that. The representative from the company that I was speaking of earlier, he has wanted me to share that he's available to answer any questions or resolve any issues there as far as what they offer and the pricing and all of that. I think they're going to be very competitive because they're the manufacturer of these. Most other companies, it's my understanding, what they do is they'll get it from a company like this, and then they're the middleman, and then they do the monitoring, et cetera. And you can actually get monitoring services directly from this group, but that it's going to add about $11 a day to that. And again, you've now delayed the reporting process. It goes to them, and then they've got to calling 911. And I don't know. That to me, the safest route for sure is to have it reported directly to E911 instead of having that
I agree.
intermediary. Yeah.
I agree. You're meeting with Callaway on the 19th?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know we've had meetings. I know Brad's attended meetings. I mean, I would even see court look at taking action to go ahead and look at moving forward with the bid process. That way, when you meet with Callaway on the 19th, you can share that with them as well.
Fantastic.
Obviously, putting that bid together, we'll have to do that. But
Yeah, there are a lot of statutes involved, so obviously Mr. Darnell would be, need to use your resources there.
Yeah, what I would suggest you do if the court's interested is do a motion to allow me to move forward with the bid process, cooperating with Brian Ernstberger, who's Callaway County Attorney, if Callaway expresses their interest as well, and then he and I can work on a language for a bid, and we can get her out there.
So moved.
second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Very well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judge.
Yes,
Good to see you.
you too. All right. Next on the agenda under guests, John Board with the Kentucky Department of Agricultural. This is a memorandum of understanding. Good morning, sir.
How you doing, sir?
I figured you knew our 911 director over
Yes,
there.
sir, that's correct.
You guys used to work together, I take it?
Yes, sir.
John and I sat down. This is, once you go ahead, this is going to be regarding the mosquitoes in our county. So, John, if you want to go ahead and.
I'll give you a
update
brief
us.
overview. What we did last year is we partnered with Trigg County. With this program, we've supplied Trigg County with the equipment and the chemical. Judge Hollis was here last week. We had a joint meeting with Trigg County, Callaway County, and Marshall County officials. The program works well with them. It worked well for us. So what we decided to do this year, because the only two buildings that we have located in the western part of the state in my 20 county coverage area is it located in Marshall County. So we work well with Marshall County officials. But what we decided to do was partner with Callaway County and Marshall County this year and extend that program across the lakes to let y'all provide coverage to your constituents. What we do is we provide the fogging units, and we provide the chemical. The Fiscal Court will need to approve to supply the manpower and a vehicle. What we'll do at that point is I'll work with the appointed county official, and we will get the person trained and get them licensed to spray the chemical. The chemical's a duet. It's got about a 10.5-hour half-life on it. So if you're planning for an event, say the county has an event coming up and they want to go out and treat that area, as long as you treat it in a timely manner, it's perfectly safe to the public. We do that. Currently, right now, there's 2 of us that operate in 20 counties. So this allows you to be able to reach your citizens in a more timely manner. If we're working the northern part of our state or the southern part down in the lower part of the state, it may take us a few days to get up here and respond, or maybe a week. So this allows us to work with y'all, and we have some equipment on surplus. So once the Fiscal Court approves of it, what I'll do then is I have to take it to my executive staff. They sign off on it, and then it goes to Commissioner Quarles' office for it to be signed off on by him. And then we'll start working with y'all to implement the program. But Judge Hollis was here last week, and he met with the deputy judge, and he had a very nothing but high opinions to say about the way the program worked. And we'll be working with you. We're not going to give you the equipment and abandon you. We'll be working with you, and we'll be backing you up as you need assistance. Does anybody have any questions?
I know when we were doing this, how many, just to give the court an idea, the coverage that your office has as far as counties?
Right now, there's 2 of us for 20 counties in the western region. There's 5 of us for 120 counties, and we cover 5 different programs. This is just one of our programs that we cover.
As far as the response time, I mean, when I sat down, I know I talked with Wendy, but when I sat down with John, it made sense that if they're going to help us supply the equipment and the training, those individuals in the community that call, we can have a better time to respond to spray those areas instead of.
Currently, right now, the only county in the western part of the state that's went out and purchased their own equipment, their own chemicals, Union County, and that incurs some expense. It's about $12,000 for the unit we'll be providing y'all, and the chemicals $50,000. Or it's for a 50-gallon drum. It's $9,000 is what it is. We have our chemical building located here in Marshall County, and we have another office building down at the airport road. So your operator would come to us when he runs out of chemical. We resupply them and put them back on the road.
Is there any questions?
Is it something we had already budgeted for since we did it the last
Well-
year, or is it just?
What we would do with them is we would have somebody from the road department,
Right.
because the road department, they know the roads, so they would actually go out with them at night to do the spraying. So as far as
So it's not,
budgeting.
it's not over, I mean, it's not over and above their hours, it's within their 40 hours, or how?
No, I think it was,
No,
I think it was overtime. I mean, it was,
We paid overtime last year.
Yeah.
To have someone go with them.
yeah. So, in this case, and there's various ways we can do this to where, we can do a contract, because it's only a period of time. It's not for the full year. So it's,
Roughly,
March
it's
to
April
August.
roughly, it's April 15th through October 15th. It's basically the period that we run that. Now, we wouldn't be working side by side with your personnel all the time. We would come in and provide training and oversight. Then if they need us, we would come in at that point. But your operator would respond to calls as they came in.
yeah.
And we'll be responding to calls, obviously, in our other coverage districts.
So we were paying out of the overtime that was budgeted.
Deal with it as it,
Yeah, we
No,
got
I guess there's
options.
no-
We can either have,
nothing we need to do as far as a specific line item right now.
correct?
One operator can cover Marshall County in probably 2 nights a week. You have to start in the dark, you know, at dusk and work until the night till you respond to your calls. But with the backwater you got this year, things going on, it may be something you'd want to have on hand as well.
Okay. Is there any questions?
Who takes the calls? I mean, will that come to our office, or will it go to your office first and then?
There are calls that come into Frankfurt. We have a lady up there that handles the calls. Calls also come into the health department, the local health department. Some calls do come into the county officials. Most of those calls that come in at the county level are forwarded to the state level, and then we respond. Once the fiscal court decides to move forward on the matter, I'll work with whoever the judge appoints me to work with, and we'll facilitate the best way to handle those calls as they come in.
Yeah, and I think when we did this last year or the year before, we would give them, because I know I got calls to my office, but we would give the agency's phone number, and then they would make the call. I think we put it out on our social media platform. So we would still do that, but then we would actually, I guess in conjunction with your office and our local offices, take that information. I can see it at the local level. Once folks realize there's going to be more direct asset at the local level, they're going to be calling probably my office, calling you guys, I know they're going to be calling your office.
That's correct. Judge Hollis said that once the county citizens of Trigg County realized that they were responding themselves, that the calls started coming in more to the county officials, and then they generated their own list and sent it out. But if anything comes in from us, we'll contact y'all, and if you can handle those calls, we'll forward them to you, and if not, we'll respond to that area.
And I could probably envision seeing where folks in the community can go to our webpage, just like they're already doing, and fill out information, and then every day we can, to reduce the actual phone calls, because I know that's taxing, but we can put some stuff in place on our webpage to where we can field those calls, because you need addresses, you need exact location information for spraying for those mosquitoes.
Yes, a 911 address is mainly what we go off of. We'll respond to that area. We won't pull on your personal property when we go out there and respond to that area, but we'll treat that general location around that residence where there's a problem, or if it's a resort, it's out by the lakes, we'll go into that resort area and treat that area as well.
Yeah, and just so folks know, we're not calling 911 for mosquito problems.
No, you don't want to do that.
Okay. Do y'all have any other questions? I don't. With this MOU, it would just need the court's action for me to sign it. If we wanted to go into this memorandum of understanding.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'll get this signed. You gonna pick it up today, or do you
Yes,
need
sir.
email? Okay.
Yes, sir. I'll stand by. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, Diane Angle. Morris County Conservation District, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm Vicki Boatwright. I'm the Administrative Secretary with the Marshall County Soil and Water Conservation District. And this is Diana Engel. She's the Natural Resource Planner with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. I expect you all to remember all that. We can give you the acronyms. If you want. There's like a glossary. The reason we're here today is because we have been approached by Dusty Harrell. I know he's talked with Judge and with Wendy about some different problem areas in the county where there's some flooding caused by beaver dams. We expect that the Conservation District will be signing a contract with him on Friday to address some of these issues between English Road and Lakeview Church Road. The cost of that project is on a letter attached to a map that I gave you before the meeting started. The total cost is $9,000, and through the Kentucky Division of Conservation, I've secured $7,500 to cover that cost, which will leave another $1,500 that we're asking Fiscal Court to help us with today.
Perfect.
I know I talked with Dusty, and he shared with me some of the photos of the beaver dams out there, and they're quite impressive. But,
So maybe we should elaborate a little bit on why this is a problem. Dusty's position with APHIS is Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, okay? So there are different species of trees in that area. It's a very unique area in the county. Everybody knows it as the cypress swamp. And there are lots of hardwood trees that are dying because of the level of the water out there. So that's why, we're trying to address this issue. Also, I think there's some road flooding issues.
yeah, I know we've got a meeting on another part of the county where we got some beaver issues, so. Well, this is good that we've got, that there's some monies to go towards this cost. I know that area is definitely, the flooding, my concern would be the state route. I don't know if there's ever any water damage to the roadway surface or undersurface, but $1,500 to get them in there, and I think this is a year contract.
It is.
Do y'all have any questions? We'll probably be seeing another one of these when we sit down for, which road was it?
Calvert City Road, we have a cross culvert that a beaver keeps building in, and we are continually out there cleaning it out, but it's causing flooding issues there also. And I talked to Dusty yesterday, actually, and he said it would be $1,500 for that location. And it's, he takes care of any signatures with the private landowners too, if he has to be on them to help take care of the situation. And he does this for a year. Each site is for a year. He takes care of the beavers there for a year.
And that particular Calvert City Road, I know we're kind of getting off, but it's still the same issues. Is that something that you can fund out of your
Yeah.
budgeted dollars now?
You can, if you want to point out the area. That's.
You see on the satellite imagery where the trees are dead. The water is definitely raised, and it has been for some time. I know it's got some road issues on Calvert City Road. 15. Take action on this.
In my budget?
Well, you've already got for Calvert City Road.
Yeah, I can take it out of the road material.
Could you take the other 1,500, Eddie?
That's easy enough. Does that include any removal of the dam or anything?
Yes, that would include removal of the dams in the area between English Road and
It
Lakeview
does
Church Road.
remove the dam
Yes,
also?
Yes.
And just so people know too, Dusty is not going to relocate these beaver.
Right,
They will be exterminated.
right.
So it's not we're just going to take them and put them somewhere else. He's going
Right.
to trap and dispose of them. So,
1,500, we don't want them anywhere else.
no,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
You gonna make cool hats out of them?
That would look really nice with your tie, Jason.
I can see him running.
We've got the monies to cover the 1,500 for this particular project, so if we want to take action on that.
Make a motion to do so.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Next under guest is Russ Litzinger with Markham Engineering. Good morning, Russ. I sent y'all should have access to the emails.
that Russ had sent over the course of a couple of weeks now. You can follow along. He's going to get over our heads, so that's why I wanted you to
I'll
tell
try
him
not
that.
to, for sure, because then I'll be over my head too. But first off, I appreciate the opportunity to be of service to the fiscal court. And we had the opportunity last Wednesday, me and Gary Teckenbrock, thanks for letting me borrow him, he's a big help, to tour the Justice Center for the purposes of looking at the moisture and the humidity concerns, the biological growth concerns that were going on over there. So I tried to outline succinctly in my email to the judge some of the prevalent concerns that we saw there, and I'm glad to walk through that if you'd like to, or just open the floor for questions to start out. How would you like to handle it, Judge?
You can just give us, back several months ago, just to give you an overview, we got complaints of mold down at the Judicial Center. And when we researched as far as what has actually taken place over the past, there was action by the Fiscal Court, I believe in 2013. They hired a contractor to come in. They did air sample qualities. They identified that there was mold. M&M contractor out of Paducah came in and they sprayed a sealant on the exterior wall. The first thing we did last year is we wanted to make sure that there wasn't a health issue with the levels of mold. We had a environmental company come in. They did a test of the facility and identified there's no health issue, but they recommended getting scrubbers. The court purchased 2. Is that correct? We purchased 2 scrubbers to put at the facility, and that basically gets the air outside of the building. So then the next step, we wanted to actually try to identify what was causing the problem. So Judge Telly offered up his office space. The company went in, they plastic the whole room. He's actually been dislocated. He's in another chamber in the facility, but they tore into the walls to where you can actually see into the exterior wall as well. So then we reached out to Markham. Markham came in, and this is why he's here today. He's done an observation of it, and there was a proposal that Markham Engineering sent to us. We basically had him go down, and the one thing we wanted for ALC is to identify the best that we could is what's causing this problem. So that's where we're at.
So building on what Judge Neal said, just a couple things quickly. We discovered through the use of some cool tools that the building as a whole is operating at what we would call a pressure negative relative to the ambient, meaning the motive air of pressure is trying to bring air into the building through uncontrolled migration around cracks, around exterior windows, envelope interfaces, etc. We demonstrated this diagnostically, and this issue is more pronounced on the north side of the building, particularly north and west side, which is kind of ground zero for where you see a lot of the issues when you go over there. So the other thing we found kind of curious is that both the judicial building and the jail are pulling on the connecting corridor. So both of those buildings are pulling at a negative, so that they're kind of fighting each other anyway. So that's kind of an issue of concern. We noticed that in the basement area, there's several areas that have either had rainwater intrusion or are actively having rainwater intrusion currently. And one big area for that is what they refer to as evidence storage down in the basement. There's telecommunications conduits that come through the wall on the west side, connected to a grade-mounted junction box outside, and it appears that water is actually getting into that junction box and traveling through the conduit itself. And this issue looks like it's been going on for some time, and there's quite a lot of biological growth in that evidence room as well. This will be the area just adjacent to the judge's suite on the first floor below you there. We noticed that there's also been periodic, what we would call hydronic, meaning when we use hot or chilled water to heat and cool the building, those pipes that run throughout the building, there's been periodic leaks with that and also with condensate in the building. One of the worst areas of that is in a workroom adjacent to the circuit judge's office up on the second floor. Been a leak that appears to have been going on for quite some time, and that creates an indoor air quality concern. We noticed also that there were brick vents installed. So when you think about a building envelope and you have what we call brick veneer, which that building has quite a bit of, along with the Aluka bond, is that there's an airspace behind that brick veneer that is intended to allow air to pass through it to dry that out, because brick is not water impervious, as you might imagine. And we noticed that when they applied the sealing process back in 2012, it looks like most of those vents were covered up with that spray. So that may help or hinder when we start dealing with how to address the envelope itself. We also noted that it does not appear, and again, this is just limited based on what destructive removal has been done in Judge Tilley's office, that it does not appear that there has been either vapor barrier or exterior sheathing installed on behind the brick veneer, which we would typically tend to see in that type of construction. So that was a bit concerning. This is just housekeeping stuff. There are numerous instances along the exterior of the building where there's voids, holes, discontinuities through the envelope itself. A good place you can see this is on the north side of the building where they've got the two-story curtain wall system. A lot of that curtain wall, the ceiling that was used to seal the glazing to the curtain wall system has deteriorated, it's dried, it's cracked, and there's a lot of discontinuities there, so that's a good example of that type of stuff. And this will present the opportunity for air migration and moisture directly into the envelope itself. So those are kind of some of the prevailing issues we see. Maybe I'll stop there just for a minute and see if anybody has any questions there.
I have one. Based on what you've said so far, it sounds to me like we're dealing with design problems. Would you characterize it as design?
I don't think we know enough about what we've torn loose of the wall thus far to characterize it as design concerns definitively. Before we could do that, it would be prudent to go back and understand what the design philosophy was for the envelope itself. So, to your point, though, we had a system that appears to have been designed with vents in it at original construction, and those vents were then subsequently covered as a result of the sealing process that was done in 2012. So both of those can't be true, in other words, right? So we'd want to get to the bottom of what was the intent for that wall assembly, to be vented or not.
Just so you know where I'm going on it, I would like to know from a legal perspective if we're talking about design or faulty construction, or
And I can
both.
appreciate that. And I can appreciate that.
That's the reason for my question.
Yeah, I think it would be prudent in my mind that we engage the original design team, so the designer of record for that envelope, and just walk through fundamental design assumptions associated with that envelope before we jump to too many conclusions about where we're at today.
I mean, it was my understanding the sealer was done to help with the mold issue, so that was existing before the sealer blocked the openings even.
Well, and I've never, in the documentation that is circa 2012 that was generated to create a contract to do the work, the words mold were never utilized. Now, the fiscal court may have access to documentation or testing that was done
We do.
in 2012.
Yeah. There was a survey that the court took action to have a survey done.
Okay.
So there was a report that was done, and to what Commissioner Spraggs is talking about, there's levels that were identified in that survey. And then when we had, last year, an environmental group come out and do the exact same test, basically the levels were slightly higher. So there were levels identified of mode in that survey
Okay.
before M&M was contracted.
All right.
If I remember correctly, back then, the thought was that sealer was necessary to keep outside moisture from coming in. I could be wrong on that, but that's the way that I understood the problem to have been diagnosed.
Well, and Brad and I talked about this at some length while we were on site. When dealing with moisture concerns, there's usually two primary modes that moisture becomes a concern in an interior envelope. One is direct moisture transmission, which would be like what we'd call rainwater intrusion, so water in a liquid state penetrates the building envelope and ends up in the cavity. The other is what we'd call vapor transmission, and that is when you think about in our summer conditions here, it's 95 degrees outside, high relative humidity, and if I've got this impulse drive situation I'm creating because I've got a building that operates at a negative pressure, I'm inducing that moisture into the building in the vapor state. And when it gets into the cavity, now I'm cooling the interior environment. I'm at a lower energy state. It's just like when you've got that cold glass of iced tea that you set on your table when you're mowing your yard and you create that condensation. That condensation can occur then in the envelope itself. And so there's two modes that moisture can and does enter envelope. So when you address spraying an envelope to minimize rainwater intrusion, you may or may not address a vapor intrusion issue. Other questions?
Could addressing the rainwater issue make the vapor issue worse with that coating on there?
I wouldn't expect that it would make it worse. It just may not get to the root cause of what might be leading to elevated moisture levels in the building. It's a twofold, it's two separate issues. So maybe to characterize that more succinctly or anecdotally, rainwater intrusion would be the issue where we talk about this telecommunications conduits down the basement. I get rain surface water that gets into this junction box. It ends up in the building in a liquid state. So it creates a localized environment that's conducive to biological growth. Now, that's one type of issue that's addressed in a specific way to try to seal up that conduit, in this case, to prevent that rainwater from making it into the building. A separate issue now is if the building is operating at a volumetric negative, and so now as I'm running exhaust fans throughout the building, I'm intending to pull that air that I'm trying to make up through the building envelope, right? And so that's a vapor issue. I need to address that vapor issue. And one of the ways we do that proactively, maybe to move into some recommendations, is make sure that the building is what we call exfiltrating, meaning I am supplying more ventilation air to the building than I'm extracting from the building from exhaust. And in that scenario, just to kind of speak colloquially, all buildings leak, right? And so really the only choice is, do we want the building to leak inwardly or do we want it to leak outwardly, right? And we want buildings to leak out at a controlled level. That way I don't have uncontrolled migration of air into the building. So some of our diagnostics from last week suggest the building is operating at a negative currently. So that's an issue we want to address immediately along with the rainwater intrusion issue. Other questions here in the short run? Judge, I don't mind to take on maybe some suggested next steps if you'd like me to.
Well, I know that kind of like what Commissioner Spraggs was saying is that we've identified mode before the court hired a company to come in and spray the exterior wall. We still have mode. I'm looking at two of the items here that's recommended. Contacting local AT&T. I know personally in my short experience with AT&T, trying to get them to do something may take some time. But I'm trying to wrap my head around how much access is water getting in from where AT&T has their telecommunications pathway. I mean, is there that much of a pathway to where water may be getting in?
I think if you were to go down in the space and observe the physical condition down there, it's significant. Now, how do we characterize that as minor versus severe. It appears to be relatively significant. It appears to have been going on for some time. So it's just one issue that I think is prudent to address
Sure.
in the short run.
Yeah, no, I understand, because when they cut the hose into the drywall, you could literally reach in and slide your hand up the backside of the drywall, and it was just heavy moisture and mold. It's evident, you can smell it and you can see it. I'm just wondering if the telecommunications pathway, because obviously there's an expense to send, somebody out to have AT&T look at that, and if we do look at that and we determine that it is an issue, I don't know. I'm just trying to. That's a fairly large building with a big mold issue. I guess I'm trying to understand how big is the telecommunications pathway. I know they got 911, but 911 is not located in the judicial building. So there's a big footprint as far as AT&T at 911, but how much of a footprint does AT&T have at the judicial center, I guess is what I'm saying.
In terms of the mold issue specifically,
Well, the wiring, when I see telecommunications pathway, I'm assuming stuff that's coming in.
it's two 4-inch conduits that come in right above head height into that space. And part of the reason I've suggested engaging AT&T rather than dealing it with for yourself as the fiscal
Right.
court, and I can't confirm this for certain, but that they may own that junction box. That may actually be AT&T property. So then it becomes sort of their issue to deal with in my mind. So but it's brought in a significant amount of moisture over a period of time, for sure.
Jason, how does that work when you have AT&T that owns it, ALC's relationship with the county, as far as you do the maintenance on the facility, but if AT&T owns those junction boxes and we were to find out that, that's a major row in this mold issue.
Well, I mean, it's an issue that I definitely would like to see some more information on. I'm going to be careful before I give any opinions about liability in an open setting like this until I see a definitive report.
So the best action for the court would be to move on notifying AT&T or having somebody else come in with AT&T?
Do you have your final report done?
No, we'll finish it this week.
Okay.
I mentioned to Brad, I wanted to address two things, try to nail down in our report. One is reaching out to AT&T or deciding what we're going to do there. And then the second is this issue of the building operating in a negative. I've recommended to the court that they engage a certified test and balance contractor to come in and to validate the airflows on the energy recovery unit that sits on the roof. That is, during winter operations, that's the only exhaust fan operating in that building. So that unit sort of serves as ground zero for addressing the negative concern in the building. So we want to document where we're at currently with that unit, with a team that's certified to do so, and then we can elect to make adjustments if we'd like to get the building operating at a positive post-haste.
I would like to see the final report along with the suggested remedies that you have before I advise the court on what steps to take.
Okay. Fair enough. I think we meet the 19th. You'll have that report done before the 19th?
Certainly. Yeah.
Okay.
But you need these two things done to finish your report, or
I
no?
don't need them done. I was trying to make the report most value added, and those are two
Okay.
question marks that we have. And if we had those buttoned down, it would, help substantiate some of our assertions. So
Okay.
I leave that to your discretion.
But that's something we would be required to do is contact this test and balance contractor.
Well, I
That's
would
not
be
something
glad
that
to
you would.
facilitate it. What I do know as of today's date is that the AOC has agreed to reimburse the fiscal court to engage a test and balance contractor to perform this diagnostic effort. So it's just a matter of the fiscal court taking action to procure that service. The AT
Brainer to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they're gonna reimburse us.
the
Is there a
AT
local?
There is, yeah. Thermal Balance out of Paducah
Okay,
is a AABC certified test and balance agency. Could be a recommendation for that.
so you would engage that on our behalf. What about the AT&T?
Well, I'm glad to reach out to the local operating plant contact that I have. Again, I wanted to leave that to the court's discretion, how you wanted to handle that. I'm glad to help facilitate that any way I can. But I do think it prudent to involve them, let them come look at the situation, give you some advice, some feedback.
I would like to see that.
Yeah. If you could put, because I know there's some cost with that, for you to reach out to AT&T, if you can put that in somewhat of a quote so that we can submit that to ALC. Because of our relationship, as you know, we got to submit documentations per their policy, and then Thermal Balance, the same thing. We can get a quote from them if the court takes action, and then we can submit that to ALC so that we're following those steps in the procedure.
Sure.
So if the court wants to take action, I would think that's the action that we would need to take so that we can keep ALC involved with the required documents that they require.
So he can't, today, we can't engage him today to do these two things before we get that back and send it to ALC?
No, what I would suggest is we could go ahead and take action with the contingency. I get the proposal or the quotes, and then I can submit it to ALC. And they're in tune to what we're doing with this problem, so I would suspect an immediate response.
Okay.
But we can take action today with that contingency.
And then as far as the report is concerned, I'll keep the 19th kind of in view and try to get as many of these questions answered in advance of that meeting.
Yes.
So that the report is as up to date as it can be to meet your next meeting date.
Perfect. So a motion would be, if the court was to take action, would be to have Russ from Markham Engineering give us a quote to reach out to AT&T, as he's stated here, with their telecommunications pathway. And then we would also get a quote from Thermal Balance, and with that quote, we would submit both of these quotes to ALC, and then we could take action. So it'd give my office the permission to go ahead and take action on the quotes.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Russ.
Sure.
You got my contact, so if you can just get that to me through email, then we can start that process fairly quickly. And Brad, if you can get over Thermal Balance, get a quote from them. All right, under guests, or actually under correspondence, let me find it here. LaDonna, do you want to get up and speak on this? This is E911 recognized for overall excellence.
Do you have the
I do.
copy of it, or
I
if you wanna
do.
put that up? I don't have a copy in front of me.
Yep.
Um,
You want me just to read this, or you
Yeah,
want to
go
read
ahead
it?
and read it, and then you can read it if you'd like. I'll make a couple comments afterwards.
This is Next Gen 911 Institute. Dear Marshall County 911, every February, the NG9 911 Institute hosts the annual honor awards reception, whereas heroes and leaders in the 911 field are recognized and celebrated. This year, one of your industry colleagues nominated you to receive one of our 6 awards. While your nomination was not ultimately selected to be recognized during our February 13th event, your story touched and inspired our review team. Please know that the Institute appreciates all you do to support 911. On behalf of the Next Gen 911 Institute, I would like to thank you for your leadership, service, and commitment to improving public safety. Enclosed, you will find a certificate of appreciation to commemorate your continued efforts. And that's John Marks, Chairman of the Board. And this is a certificate of appreciation, and I'll just read this. This certificate is proudly presented to Marsh County 911, recognizing a 911 call center or a state or regional 911 program for overall excellence in serving the public, including the handling of emergency situations reported to 911 and the deployment and the management of new technology. And Mr. Marks signed that. So that was recognizing 911. Again, I think our 911 center is definitely improved over the past several years. So this is just another testament to not only the leadership, but the employees that work down there. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have a wonderful group. I cannot say enough good about the employees in 911. What I would like to say about this award in particular, I do not know who nominated us. That part was not given. I have no idea where it came from. I do know one of the individuals that's on this board that made the selection, and they do it by a point process. So depending on how many points you get, who receives this award. We lost by 1 point to an agency in South Carolina. So I don't take anything away from that agency, but we were there at the top, and that was reward enough for me. I had no idea this was even in the works when we got this letter. So very appreciative of that too. And I want to extend an invitation to our commissioners in particular that have probably not been in our center to see what goes on down there. But if you let me know at some point when you guys could come and spend 30 minutes or an hour to see how professional these people are and see, so you too can see and be proud of the work that they do. And most of the rest of you have been down there at different times and see what goes on. But I would love for you guys to come down as well and just see what they actually do behind the scenes.
a lot of work behind the scenes. Let's properly present this to you.
Okay.
Justin's had an emergency, but he does want to come back. He's got to take care of something at the hospital. He's gonna come back. So as far as some of the items that are on the agenda, he wants to participate in. All right. Your old business, Justin's had an emergency, so he's had to run to the hospital to take care of some things. But he wants to be here for executive session, so we'll just go ahead and move down to old business. B, approve the minutes, February 19th and February 22nd budget workshop.
Move we approve the minutes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Under old business, Enterprise Fleet Service, we did get correspondence from Eric. I think, Brad, you've got that. You can pull that up in regards to when he gave us his presentation, the local dealerships getting.
Yeah, what he said was, I'll just read the email to you. The vehicles must touch a dealer's lot before we can deliver them to Marshall County. We will pay them a courtesy delivery fee. They will get a payment from the manufacturer for the pre-delivery inspection, and they will get the report on the sale, their monthly statement. Most dealers welcome fleet business. Vehicles are on their lot for 24 hours or so, and they get $500 to $700 plus credit for the sale. And then he just said that he was more than happy to speak to any commissioners regarding that if there was any questions.
Did that,
Still,
that answer?
I watched it, just, still would like to sit down with him. I'm sorry I couldn't make that particular, meeting that day, but I think it's, important to be able to, at least, even if I don't sit down with him, to talk to him one-on-one to understand that more. I just don't, I mean, individually, each one of those is gonna, I know they call it something different, but there's an interest rate equated to that lease. I mean, is it something that we would look at each particular vehicle individually? Or does he just give you a blanket, this is what it's gonna be for all these I just, because those rates have to change over time.
There's going to be a cost, no matter what direction we go. It just depends on what cost we want to choose.
And I think it'll depend on the vehicle too.
Yeah.
So you're going to reach out to Eric, talk to
Yeah.
him directly? Okay, so we'll table this again. We'll move on to update on the RFP for financial software.
The deadline to receive that software quote was on February 22nd. I did get one bid. We're still reviewing that bid, but I wanted to let you all know we did get it. We've opened them. We have one, and we are very interested in that one. So hopefully by next court meeting, we'll be able to make a recommendation to you.
And if there's one item that I feel has priority, that's it. I mean, we've got to really take action on that because we're in a position where if we have one failure, and if it's catastrophic, we can't even pay our bills. So
To run payroll, we have fingers crossed all the time, and it takes probably, on average, 8 calls to their customer service to get it processed.
How old did you say the existing software was?
We got it in '96. We upgraded in, I think, 2004 to a Windows version, and that's the same version that we're still operating.
We've got our money's worth out of it, I
We
think.
have.
yes. Yeah, we've had an episode or two where the system went down, and we basically had to jump through some hoops to get payroll done, and it was not a very good situation to be in. So that is a priority. Under new business,
Judge,
same.
one quick item of old business.
Yes.
The Building and Inspections Department had a little issue with the project that resulted in some litigation that we initiated. That issue has been resolved, and I got our filing fees back. So there's a little bit of money there for you.
Was that the one out at, no,
Calvert.
Calvert?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the certificate of occupancy's been issued, so that one's done.
Under new business, same thing. Justin expressed he wanted to be here for item A. So we'll move on to item B, ordinance 2019-02 budget amendment, first reading.
For ordinance 2019-02, an ordinance relating to the annual budget and amendment thereof, whereas the County of Marshall has received additional funds. Now be ordained by the Fiscal Court of Marshall County that Section 1, the annual budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 is amended to increase revenue counts for bank shares, $12,434.37. Excess fees for the county clerk, $83,546.43. Sheriff's fees, $228,327.41. Animal shelter spay-neuter grant, $2,000. Delta Regional grant, $307,000. PACRO grant, $140,000. KOHS grant rescue squad, $29,782.50. General fund insurance proceeds, $38,261.70. General fund miscellaneous, $13,694.76. General fund interest, $17,097.21. State funded paving projects, $366,000. County road aid, $33,326.70. Road maintenance and improvements, $1,216. Road and sign purchases, $243.05. Road fund insurance proceeds, $22,994.16. Road fund miscellaneous, $5,890.20. Road fund interest, $10,482.64. And occupational tax fund interest, $33,073.43. Total increased revenue, $1,345,370.56. Increased expenditure accounts, county judge executive travel expense, $298.19. Sheriff's deputies, $179,397.41. Sheriff's clef, $14,000. Sheriff's FICA, $13,790. Sheriff's retirement match, $13,230. Sheriff's life insurance, $350. Sheriff's HRA funding, $7,560. Sheriff's auto expense and vehicle repairs, $3,991. Sheriff's deputy travel expense, $2.82. Oak Level Jonathan Creek expansion, $100,000. Southwest One debt service, $140,000. Fiscal Court capital projects, $207,000. Economic development travel expense, $209.43. Ambulance trading and equipment, $3,000. Animal shelter spay neuter, $2,000. County insurance, $6760.26. General fund reserves, $180,555.27. County paid paving, $366,000. Road fund reserves, $74,152.75. And occupational tax refund, $33,073.43. Total increased expenditures, $1,345,370.56. The amounts added to the revenue and expenditure accounts are in Section 1, are for governmental purposes.
And that's the first reading, correct? Okay. We'll move back up to old business, executive session personnel. Motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We'll go ahead and call court back to order. The issue of the possible removal of Marvin Stokes from the 109 board, I move that the fiscal court take no action under KRS 65007. And this specific matter be closed.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to new business under refuse board appointments. We're going to have a special call meeting on Friday. Jason's going to update us on some statutes, but the refuse board appointments, we're going to have a special call meeting. We'll go ahead and make that public announcement on Friday. Check your calendars. What time Friday?
could it be that later that afternoon sometime, just to give us time to, yeah.
3 PM on Friday?
We'll be coming back from.
Coming back from Louisville.
So we'll have a special called meeting Friday at 3 PM, and we'll be discussing the refuse board appointments. Do you want to go ahead into the statute?
The issue that has come up is under KRS 109-115, subsection 6, which was effective March 21st, 2017. And it says, in total, except for the initial board appointed pursuant to this section, each director shall serve a 2-year term and shall serve no more than 3 consecutive terms. The initial board appointed pursuant to this section shall consist of 3 directors appointed for 1 year and 4 directors appointed for 2 years. That last sentence actually does not apply, but again, except for the initial board appointed pursuant to this section, each director shall serve a 2-year term and shall serve no more than 3 consecutive terms. So taking that statute into consideration, there are at least 2 members of the board that are what I would call de facto holdover board members because their terms have in fact expired.
The discussion, I see one representative here from the city of Benton, but the discussion with the statute as far as the city of Benton's appointment, the statute does not state that the mayor has the appointment authority. So council's going to communicate that to the city of Benton, and they're going to have to look at that as far as the statute and how it states the mayor is the one that actually be the director on that board. So
That's under
Go
109-115 3B, and that reads, the mayor of the most populous city in each county that is a participant in the waste management district shall be appointed a member. So that statute, or subsection statute, says that the mayor is the member for that populous city.
So the board appointments, the individual in question, Steve Southern, commissioners want to meet him and speak with him before that is presented to the fiscal court. So we're going to have a special called meeting on Friday at 3 PM for that board appointment. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to proclamation, Kids to Parks Day. Brittany, I think you're going to present that to us.
Okay, so the National Park Trust has something that is called Kids to Parks Day, and this was started in 2011. This would be the first year for the Marshall County Parks to actually take part in this, but in, 2018, over 1 million families came out to parks all across the country. This promotes getting kids to national, state, and local county parks all across the country. It was covered by USA Today, the Weather Channel, even national media picked up on it. So there were over 1,200 events that took place in 2018. So for the first time this year, Marshall County Parks are going to participate, and we're going to have some really great events that are going to be taking place to just really emphasize the importance of families and kids coming out to the park and taking advantage of everything we have to offer.
All right. I'll go ahead and read this. This is proclamation proclaiming May 18th, 2019 as Kids to Park Day in the county of Marshall County, Kentucky. Whereas May 18, 2019 is the 9th Kids to Parks Day organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the 3rd Saturday of May. And whereas Kids to Park Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks, public lands, and waters. And whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle to combat issues of childhood obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and hypocholesterolemia. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. And now, therefore, I, Marsh County Judge Executive Kevin Neal, do hereby proclaim May 18, 2019 as Kids to Parks Day on this fifth day of March, 2019.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're
Did
doing a
you-
great job, too.
Thank you. Did you want me to go ahead and address the other event too, to tell the court about that?
Yes.
Okay, so really big news that we had this week that he wanted me to share with everybody. Major League Baseball Association puts on a series of youth events. There is a junior home run derby and also a pitch hit and run competition that is sponsored by Major League Baseball. There are local competitions all over the country where youth can come out and be qualified to advance throughout these competitions, and the winners actually go on to the Major League Baseball All-Star Week to compete in nationals. But prior to this year, the closest competitions around here would be in Saxton, Missouri, or Bowling Green, and I just got authorization this week that Mike Miller Park has been chosen to host a local competition. So we will be hosting the Major League Baseball pitch hit and run competition and the junior home run derby at Mike Miller Park on May 4th. So we're expecting that to be able to draw in from a lot of surrounding counties and cities as well. So it's going to be a pretty big event for us.
Great. No, I think that's good news.
Yep, good deal. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Brittany. Let's see. Next is Rivercrest Engineering drawdown request. Should have a copy of that. No questions. Need a motion for me to sign it.
Motion to sign, Judge.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do you want to send Emily?
Yeah, I just did. Saw that coming.
Okay. While we're waiting on her.
Just as a matter of semantics,
Yes.
on the update RFP for financial software and RFP occupational tax collection services, if we could just make that bid instead of, say bid instead of RFP.
Was that, did we do a motion on that? Or
Well,
what?
no, I'm just saying, just for semantics purposes, because
Okay.
there, I mean, there's a difference between an RFP and a bid.
Yes.
So that's it's an important difference. So I just want to make sure that all our records are. Right. Yeah.
Software.
Just financial software, yes, that was bid. That was a
Okay.
public
Gotcha.
notice bid, yeah.
In the paper, and, yeah.
Yep.
So then we'll do the occupational tax thing.
It'll be a bid. Gotcha. Good catch. Rescheduling April 2nd court meeting. We got spring break that week. I didn't know if folks are going to be going. Typically, folks are gone that week.
Stay for Tater Day, Judge. I'm from the city of Benton.
Let's see, we can do it the 9th of April or the 26th.
The 9th is my birthday. By the way, and I'll be leaving afterwards too.
How about we do, I've got a scheduled meeting. We don't have to do it on Tuesday either. I'm just throwing that out there. We can do it on the 10th of April.
10th is a Wednesday, right?
Yeah. Is that bad for you guys?
Bad for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the Thursday, the 11th?
The 11th, that should be good.
The 9th is fine if everybody else is good. I mean, seriously.
I'm good.
9th is,
Yeah.
well, I've got a,
Oh, you have something.
yeah, I've got
Okay.
a meeting at 9:45. But we can do it that afternoon. Oh, okay, yeah, you're going out of town. What about Mondays? The 8th?
The 8th is fine.
Monday morning.
Yeah. All right. So 9:30, April 8th.
Go ahead and bring your presents anyway, even though it's the day before. I will accept
All right. Nope, you're fine. Occupational tax is going to be a bid for occupational tax. If you want
Yeah. We have met with the school, and there is an organization that potentially does occupational tax collections on individuals or companies that we possibly miss. Most of those charge a flat fee, so we've avoided it. This one is off of commissions, so, or not commissions, but collections. So if they don't collect anything, they don't get anything. So we are asking to put out an RFP, a bid, for that service, that it would be similar to, and probably side by side, not together with the school board. They're looking at doing this too. They would, the one thing that probably we would need to discuss and you all agree on is what we would allow them to collect. Our ordinance states that we can go back 5 years. If we allow them to go back 5 years, or if we only want them to go back 2, it just depends. We can't play favorites in that some people, if we find out that they weren't, we only do 2 years on them, and it needs to be across the board what we allow them to do, very clear.
How are they being missed, do you know?
Well, a big part of it is we don't have a business license. So I don't know you're doing business here until you file your federal taxes, and hopefully your accountant says, hey, there's a county tax you need to file on the net profits. So there's no.
But if you do not use an accountant,
Yeah. If you don't, then.
do your own.
Right. Then we don't have any way of knowing that you're doing something in the county. If you have payroll, you would be, we know that because you should be withholding and turning that into us quarterly. But if you're just individuals, that's gonna be this organization, they buy their information. I don't know who from or how, and then they compare that to our records. So it's something that we are interested in looking into. You all don't have to give us permission right now. We could draft the specs for the bid and then bring them before you, maybe next meeting. But I wanted to bring it up to you and let you know that we did meet with the school board, and it looked like something that was a little different than what we've seen in the past and might be worthwhile.
So we would need action to put that out the bid.
Make a motion and allow them to put it out for bid, Judge.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Appropriations transfer.
In appropriation transfers, we do have a few that are coming from reserves. When we've gotten in some of the money from the fire, some of that has gone into reserves. Most of it that we could identify with the building went into the fiscal court capital projects, but some of it went into reserves. The clerk is buying, their iPads, that is gonna be your docket, or not your docket, this is your register for when you go to vote. The state is buying those, except they will only buy one per precinct. So there's no substitute. If somebody drops it and it busts, then you're kind of dead in the water for a little while. So, because there's no register, there's no paper book to back up to it, so.
There's no Republican and Democrat side, there's one. So everybody's getting into one line, is that what you're saying,
If they only allow one, then yeah, you're gonna have to probably switch back and forth between tabs or something.
Yeah.
I've not used them yet.
So it's as quick, if not quicker, than flipping through a book.
It does seem very nice,
So if you're just doing that.
but Tim was wanting to buy several, not 20, but a few to have on hand for extras in the event that something happens. We've got a backup that we can put out there. So,
Does it take Wi-Fi also, by the way?
this- okay.
So all of we're not gonna have an issue with it in some of the polling places? Where did you?
Fire department.
As long as we don't have a
The
polling
ones
place
that-
somewhere between Hardin and Murray where there's no.
Harvey Brewer's got Wi-Fi.
Yeah. But that, part of that, I'm asking to move 7,000 out of general reserves for those. We are asking to move the contingency reserve dollars into the deputies' salaries. There's a departmental transfer within 911. Commissioner travel, prior administration, they all had some expenses before they left. District 2 had the most. It was $2,007.39. So due to the training that we've had, it has put commissioner travel for District 2, it's at, following today's approval of bills, it would be at a negative 6742. Commissioner Travel 1 only spent $1350.39. So I'm asking to move, and I think, as far as I know, what I can predict for what your travel requirements are gonna be between now and June are gonna be minimal. So I'm asking to move $500 from Commissioner District 1 to District 2 to give a balance of $218.12 in District 2's travel.
Previous guy.
Miscellaneous, general fund miscellaneous, I'm asking to move $250 from general fund reserves to miscellaneous. Miscellaneous covers, retirement items, registration for vehicles, funeral flowers, miscellaneous items. So I'm asking to move $250 into there. Animal shelter has a departmental transfer, asking to move $750 out of general fund reserves to sanitation employee travel, where we've got Jonathan driving a personal vehicle, or at least did have, to cover those expenses. Park,
I think he's still in a personal vehicle.
so we quite likely will have to move additional there. That will get eat up pretty quickly. Park has some departmental transfer, and then building repairs and expenses was over by $437.17. So I moved 1,000 from reserves to cover that overage in building repairs.
So we did, do we have a motion to approve the appropriations transfer?
Motion to move, Judge.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Intra-fund transfer,
And me looking through receipts for the budget amendment earlier, I noticed that 911, we had missed their first quarterly. They're the one place that we quarterly drop that transfer that we have budgeted for them. So we missed that. So they were down $50,667.49. So I'm asking to move that. And then $250,000 to the road fund, both of those from occupational tax fund, and both are budgeted.
Motion to approve the transfer, Judge.
second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. Payment of the bills. Did you have something, Kevin, that you wanted to put in the motion?
Oh, yes, there was a bill in there from the coroner's office
Mm-hmm.
that we need to remove from that.
Okay, strike that one from the reimbursement to the coroner for those supplies, the food items?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion would be approve payment of the bills minus
That transaction.
transaction.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Real quick, Judge, one final item for the court. Wendy has talked to somebody from the finance cabinet. In the past, we have, on our scrap metal, there's been times when we have surplus that and put it out for bid. Wendy's been in contact with them, and that actually costs the county some revenue, because what happens is a party will buy that, and they'll just take it straight to the recycling, and they'll make money. So we're actually losing money by putting it out to bid. So instead of surplusing that, that's considered a recyclable as far as the finance cabinet is concerned, and we can just take that straight to a recycling place and get our best bang for the buck, so to speak, as opposed to having to bid it out and losing money on that process.
Okay, so we don't have to, the road department can do that whenever they, because I know she was saying they piled up. We don't need an action on that, do we? We just,
Well, I think we
update.
probably ought to just to be on the safe side, give Wendy the authority to do that. But yeah, and again, that came from, she got authority from the finance cabinet. So-
Okay. So is there a motion to give Wendy out the road department to take the scrap metal as needed or when needed to the scrap yard?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.